My sweet revenge was one screenshot, and everyone saw the truth. My name is Marissa. I'm 31 years old, and I work in project management for a mid-sized company in the US. I'm posting from a throwaway. Names changed, because I'm still employed and HR loves paperwork more than drama. This story isn't about fighting or screaming. It's about the kind of revenge that tastes sweet because it's quiet, because nobody can accuse you of overreacting when you simply let truth speak. The person who pushed me into this was my coworker, Tiffany, late 22nds. Tiffany is polished, pretty, and the type who knows how to sound helpful while actually undermining you. If you've ever worked with someone who weaponizes concern, you know the type. For a year, Tiffany and I were on the same team. Same projects, same deadlines, same client calls. At first, she seemed friendly. She'd compliment my outfit, bring cookies, ask about my weekend. Then she started doing small things that didn't look like sabotage unless you were the one living inside them. She'd forget to include me on emails. She'd volunteer to handle my tasks and then do them wrong. She'd ask questions in meetings that made it sound like I didn't know my own work. If I called it out, she'd smile and say, "Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. I thought you knew." I tried to be mature about it. I documented. I fixed issues quietly. I didn't want to be the office drama person. Then a promotion came up. Our manager announced that a senior role was opening, more pay, more authority, better title. I didn't even think Tiffany and I were competing because I had more experience, and I had been leading the toughest accounts. But Tiffany saw it differently. She saw everything as a competition. The week after that announcement, she changed. She started coming into the office earlier than me. She started scheduling quick check-ins with our manager. She started acting like she was already in charge. Then she did the first blatant thing. She took credit for my work in a meeting. I presented a timeline I'd created for a client launch. It was detailed and took me hours. Tiffany interrupted halfway through and said, "Yeah, I built that timeline." Built, not helped. Built. I looked at her, waiting for her to correct herself. She didn't. My manager glanced at me, confused. I said calmly, "I built it." Tiffany reviewed it. Tiffany laughed like I was being petty. "Oh, same thing," she said. "Same thing." After the meeting, I confronted Tiffany privately. I said, "Do not take credit for my work." She smiled sweetly. "Marissa, you're so sensitive," she said. "We're a team." The phrase, "we're a team," is what people say when they want access to your work without accountability. I started keeping receipts more carefully. Screenshots of who created what. Time-stamped files. Meeting notes. Then Tiffany escalated. She started implying to coworkers that I was difficult, that I was not a team player, that I hoarded work. It was subtle reputation damage, the kind that makes people stop trusting you without knowing why. Then came the humiliation. We had a quarterly department meeting with presentations and a little informal awards segment, basically office morale nonsense. People clapped for most improved and best collaboration and client hero. Our manager called Tiffany up and said, "Tiffany has been incredible. She basically carried the Westbrook project." The Westbrook project was my project. I froze. Tiffany walked up smiling like she was on stage. She accepted the applause like it belonged to her. Then, into the microphone, she said, laughing, "Honestly, I'm just happy someone finally noticed. Some people take a long time to catch up." She glanced at me when she said it. People laughed awkwardly. My face went hot. My stomach dropped. I didn't clap. I didn't smile. I just sat there feeling like I'd been slapped without being touched. After the meeting, my manager pulled me aside and said, "Hey, are you okay? Tiffany said you don't like sharing credit." I stared at him. "I don't like losing credit for work I did," I said. My manager looked uncomfortable. "It's complicated," he said. Complicated. Another word people use when they don't want to face reality. That evening, I cried in my car like I was 16 again. Not because I wanted the stupid award, because I realized Tiffany had successfully planted a narrative, that she was the star and I was the bitter coworker. And narratives matter. They decide promotions. They decide who gets believed. They decide who gets pushed out quietly. So I stopped trying to be the bigger person in silence. I decided on a plan that wasn't loud, wasn't illegal, and wasn't cruel. It was simple. I would let Tiffany keep talking, and I would collect receipts until the moment she couldn't deny it. Because the sweetest revenge isn't a dramatic explosion. It's watching someone realize the story they invented is about to collapse because of their own words. And the first opportunity arrived sooner than I expected. A client email came in sent to Tiffany by mistake. And attached to that email was the one thing she could never explain away. A file showing she had edited my work and renamed it with her own initials, then forwarded it to our manager as if she created it. I stared at the attachment, hands shaking, and whispered to myself, "Thank you," because now it wasn't my word versus hers. It was proof. The email that landed in Tiffany's inbox by mistake was from a client we'll call Westbrook. It included an attachment, the updated project timeline. The timeline was mine. I recognized it instantly because I had a specific formatting style I always used: color-coded dependencies, a notes column, and my initials hidden in the file properties out of habit. But the attachment had been renamed. Instead of Westbrook Timeline, Marissa V7, it said Westbrook Timeline, Tiff V1. My stomach dropped, then strangely relaxed, because this wasn't a suspicion. It was a decision. She was actively rebranding my work as hers. The client's message said, "Thanks for putting this together so quickly, Tiffany. You're saving us." I sat there staring at the screen, feeling the anger rise and then settle into something colder: clarity. I forwarded the email to myself immediately, then saved it as a PDF, then took screenshots. I also pulled the metadata from my original file, showing my creation time and edits. Then I did the second most important thing. I didn't confront Tiffany. If I confronted her now, she'd cry, apologize, claim misunderstanding, and then pivot to, "Marissa is harassing me." So I played it like chess, not checkers. I requested a quick 15-minute check-in with my manager, Drew, for later that week. I didn't mention Tiffany in the calendar invite. I titled it, Westbrook Timeline Clarification. Drew accepted. While waiting, I kept documenting. Every time Tiffany corrected me in a meeting, every time she spoke over me, every time she described my tasks as things she handled, I wrote down dates and witnesses. Then Tiffany got bold. She started calling the Westbrook client directly without looping me in. She'd come out of phone booths smiling and say, "All good," like she was managing everything. When I asked for updates, she'd say, "Oh, I already handled that." Handled that. Another ownership word. A week later, Drew called a project review meeting and invited the VP. Because Westbrook was our biggest account, Tiffany walked into the room dressed like she was going to a networking event. Perfect hair, heels, confidence. I walked in with my laptop. Calm face, stomach tight. Drew said, "Okay, Tiffany, can you walk us through the timeline?" Of course, he asked her, because the narrative was already working. Tiffany smiled and clicked through slides that were screenshots of my timeline. She spoke with authority. She used phrases like, "I built," and "my plan." I watched her like I was watching a crime happen in slow motion. Then, at the end, the VP asked a question about risk mitigation. Tiffany paused. She blinked slightly. Her eyes flicked toward me, searching for rescue. Because she didn't actually know the details. She knew how to present. She didn't know the work. I answered calmly. "We flagged that risk 2 weeks ago. It's in the notes column. If the dependency slips, we shift milestones 3 and 4 and notify the client same day." The VP nodded. "Good," he said. Tiffany smiled too quickly, like she was relieved I'd saved her. After the meeting, Tiffany cornered me near the break room. "You embarrassed me," she hissed. I blinked. "By answering a question?" I asked calmly. Tiffany's eyes flashed. "You're trying to make me look stupid." I said, "You're making yourself look stupid by taking credit for work you didn't do." Tiffany's face went red. "Prove it," she snapped. I almost smiled, because I could. Now, but I didn't. Not yet. I wanted the cleanest possible exposure, one that couldn't be framed as me attacking her. So I said softly, "Okay." Then I walked away. That same evening, I got an email from HR. Reminder about our code of conduct. Respectful workplace behavior. No names. But the timing was suspicious. Tiffany had reported me. Not for anything specific, just to start a paper trail that I was difficult. This is what people like her do. They pre-label you as a problem, so when you tell the truth later, it looks like drama. I replied to HR politely, "Thank you for the reminder." And then I forwarded that email to my personal receipts folder too, because if this was going to become a war, I was going to win without raising my voice. On Thursday, I went into Drew's office for the Westbrook timeline clarification. He smiled casually. "What's up?" I pulled out my laptop and said, "I want to clarify ownership of the Westbrook timeline." Drew's smile faded slightly. "Okay," he said. I showed him the client email. I showed the renamed file. I showed the metadata on my original file. I showed the version history from our project management tool showing I created the timeline and Tiffany accessed it after. Drew stared at the screen for a long time. Then he said, "Why would she rename it?" I replied calmly, "To make it look like she created it." Drew rubbed his forehead. "This is serious," he said. I nodded. "Yes," I said, "and it's been happening for months." Drew asked, "Why didn't you come sooner?" I swallowed. "Because I didn't want drama," I said. "But she's making it impossible to do my job." Drew exhaled. "Okay," he said. "I'll handle it." I left his office feeling shaky but relieved. And I wish that was the end. But Tiffany sensed something was shifting. People like Tiffany can smell when the room stops believing them. So she escalated. That afternoon, she posted on LinkedIn, "Grateful to lead the Westbrook project and mentor newer team members." That was aimed at me, like I was beneath her. Then she messaged the Westbrook client from her email and added a line about streamlining communication and asked them to send all requests to her directly going forward. She was trying to cut me out completely. Drew saw it. He emailed Tiffany and me both. Effective immediately. All Westbrook communication routes through Marissa as project lead. Tiffany replied, "Understood." But 5 minutes later, Tiffany walked into my office area and said, too loudly, "Congrats on getting your way." People looked up. The attention she craved. I kept my voice calm. "This isn't my way," I said. "It's my job." Tiffany leaned closer and whispered, "You're going to regret this." I didn't respond. Because her threats were exactly what I needed. I documented the moment and told Drew the next day. "She's retaliating." Drew said, "HR will handle it." Here, that word is the bridge between drama and consequences. And it's also where Tiffany made her final mistake, because she assumed HR would automatically believe the polished person over the quiet one. So she filed a complaint first. She claimed I was bullying her, and HR called me in. I walked into that meeting with a calm face, a folder of receipts, and one thought: this is where my sweetest revenge is going to happen. Because HR isn't impressed by charm. HR is impressed by documentation. HR meetings have a specific vibe: neutral walls, careful phrasing, and the feeling that your whole career is being weighed on a clipboard. The HR rep, Angela, smiled politely and said, "Thanks for coming in, Marissa. This is just a conversation." Just a conversation is what people say before they ask questions that can change your job. Angela said, "We've received a complaint that you've been creating a hostile environment for a colleague." I nodded calmly. "Okay," I said. Angela blinked like she expected me to panic. "Can you respond?" I said yes, and placed my folder on the table. "Before I respond, I want to provide documentation of ongoing misattribution of my work and retaliation." Angela's eyebrows rose. "Okay," she said slowly. "Go ahead." I didn't rant. I didn't cry. I didn't call Tiffany names. I showed the client email praising Tiffany for my timeline, the renamed file, the metadata proving creation, the version history showing Tiffany accessed after, the meeting notes where Tiffany claimed ownership, the HR conduct, email timing, and Drew's directive restoring me as project lead. Angela's face changed from neutral to serious. She said, "This is comprehensive." I nodded. "I've tried to keep it professional," I said. Angela asked, "Have you discussed this with your manager?" "Yes," I said. Drew reassigned communication to me. After that, Tiffany said, "You're going to regret this," and filed this complaint. Angela paused. "So you believe the complaint is retaliatory?" "Yes," I said simply. Angela asked, Do you have any written threat? I opened my phone and showed a Slack message from Tiffany that I hadn't mentioned yet because I was saving it for exactly this question. Enjoy your little win. It won't last. Angela stared at it, then nodded slowly. Thank you, she said. Then she asked the question that sealed it. Do you have any reason to believe she used company systems to falsify ownership? I said, yes. She renamed files and presented them as hers. That's why I have version history. Angela nodded. Okay, she said. We will investigate. I walked out of HR and felt my legs shaking. That was the moment the revenge started tasting sweet. Not because I was happy to hurt her, but because I was finally out of the powerless position. Tiffany's power relied on perception. HR ran on paper. 2 days later, Drew called me into his office and said, HR interviewed Tiffany. I asked, what did she say? Drew sighed. She said you're jealous and trying to sabotage her career. Jealous. That word again. Toxic people use jealousy like a weapon because it makes your motive look petty. Drew continued, she also said the timeline was collaborative and you're claiming ownership to control the project. I nodded. And what did HR say? I asked. Drew looked at me carefully. They asked for file histories. We pulled logs. It's not collaborative. I exhaled. Then Drew said, Marissa, this isn't the first complaint about Tiffany. That surprised me. It's not? Drew shook his head. She's done similar things before, but no one documented like you did. Documented. That's why my revenge was sweet. Because it wasn't dramatic. It was disciplined. HR placed Tiffany on a performance plan. She wasn't fired immediately, but her access was restricted. Westbrook Communication was locked to my account, and Tiffany was removed from client-facing responsibilities. She lost what she wanted most, the stage. She reacted the only way she knew how. She went crying to coworkers, claiming I attacked her. She posted another vague LinkedIn update about women supporting women. Then she cornered me in the hallway again, eyes sharp. You think you won, she said. I kept my voice calm. I think you got caught, I replied. Her face twisted. You're pathetic, she hissed. This is why people don't like you. That comment would have crushed me a year ago. Now it felt like noise. I said, stop talking to me, and walked away. A week later, Drew announced the promotion decision. I got it. Senior role. Pay bump. Official title. When Drew told me, he said, you earned it. I smiled. But it wasn't even about the promotion at that point. It was about being seen accurately. Then came the sweetest part, the part I didn't plan. The Westbrook client sent an email to the whole internal team. Thank you, Marissa, for leading this project so smoothly. Your timeline and communication have been outstanding. Not Tiffany, me. It was public recognition from the person Tiffany wanted to impress most. I stared at the email and felt something like laughter and tears at the same time. That was my sweetest revenge. Not humiliation. Validation. But Tiffany wasn't done yet. People like her don't accept consequences quietly. She tried one final move. She filed a complaint claiming I was stalking her online and making fake accounts to ruin her reputation. It was absurd, but it was scary because false accusations can still cause damage. HR called me again. Angela asked calmly, do you have any contact with Tiffany outside work? I said, no. Angela asked, do you have proof you didn't contact her? I did. Because my revenge wasn't just receipts against her. It was receipts protecting me. I showed my blocked list. No DMs. No emails. No message. Nothing. Then I asked Angela a simple question. Does Tiffany have proof? Angela went quiet. Then she said, no. That's when Tiffany's credibility died. She resigned 2 weeks later, not with an apology, with a dramatic goodbye email about toxic culture. I didn't respond. I didn't celebrate loudly. I went home, poured a glass of wine, and sat in silence. Because revenge isn't always loud. Sometimes it tastes sweet because it restores your peace. But here's the twist. Tiffany didn't just lose her job. She lost her reputation in the industry because Westbrook was a big client. And in our field, word travels. Her next job offer got pulled according to a mutual coworker who knew someone in recruiting. I can't confirm it fully, but the timing lined up, and I didn't have to lift a finger. That's what happens when someone's whole strategy is lies. Once exposed, they collapse under their own weight. Now, the Aita part. Was I wrong for waiting, documenting, and letting HR handle it instead of confronting her publicly sooner? Or was that the cleanest revenge? A weird thing happened after Tiffany resigned. People started acting like I had done something harsh. A coworker said, "I feel bad for her." Another said, "She made mistakes, but did she deserve to lose her job?" I didn't argue. I just listened. So here's my Ada question. Aita for documenting Tiffany's behavior and letting HR handle it, knowing it would probably end her job? Some people say I should have talked to her more or worked it out privately. But I did talk to her. She called me sensitive. She called it teamwork. She escalated. The truth is, people who steal credit don't stop because you ask nicely. They stop when there's a consequence they can't charm away. I didn't seek revenge for fun. I sought justice for survival. And the sweetest part was this. I didn't become her. I didn't lie. I didn't smear. I didn't attack. I just kept records. If you're asking, what's the sweetest revenge? My answer is staying calm when they want you emotional, collecting proof when they want you confused, and letting their own actions be the evidence. Because when someone builds their life on manipulation, the truth is the sharpest thing you can serve. Because this is what happens in workplaces. People prefer a simple moral story where everyone is nice and nobody is the villain. They don't like admitting that someone intentionally manipulated systems, so I stayed calm and let the facts speak. I also learned something about sweet revenge. It's not satisfying because someone suffers. It's satisfying because you stop suffering. My health improved. I slept better. I stopped dread scrolling before work. I felt safe in meetings again. And I realized Tiffany hadn't just stolen credit. She had stolen months of my peace. Getting that peace back was delicious. But I still had one final challenge. Tiffany's friends at work. She had a small group of coworkers who believed her victim narrative. They didn't sabotage me openly, but they did micro things. Excluding me from lunch, giving me cold looks, whispering in hallways. Old me would have panicked and tried to win them over. New me didn't. I did my job. I built relationships with people who were professional. I stopped caring about being liked by people who supported dishonesty. And eventually, the cold group melted into neutrality because they got bored. That's the thing about drama circles. They need fuel. If you don't feed them, they die out. A month later, I got a message from Tiffany. Not directly through LinkedIn. She sent a connection request with a note. "No hard feelings, hope you're well." I stared at it, laughing quietly. No hard feelings. After she tried to get me fired twice, I declined, and I blocked her because my sweetest revenge wasn't reconciling. It was boundary. Then the true dessert arrived, something I didn't expect. My manager Drew called me into his office and said, "Marissa, I'm sorry." I blinked. "For what?" He said, "I should have noticed sooner. I should have protected you from her behavior before it escalated." That apology mattered because it acknowledged the system, not just Tiffany. Tiffany wasn't a lone villain. She was enabled by people's desire to avoid discomfort, and I had ended that by refusing silence. Now, for the final update, I'm posting because I keep thinking about the question, what's the sweetest revenge you've ever tasted? Mine wasn't screaming at Tiffany in a meeting. It wasn't humiliating her online. It was watching her realize that her charm didn't work against a spreadsheet of evidence. And watching my manager, my team, and my client finally see me correctly. That's sweet because it's clean, and it's repeatable. So here's my Ada question. Ada for documenting Tiffany's behavior and letting HR handle it, knowing it would probably end her job. Some people say I should have talked to her more or worked it out privately. But I did talk to her. She called me sensitive. She called it teamwork. She escalated. The truth is, people who steal credit don't stop because you ask nicely. They stop when there's a consequence they can't charm away. I didn't seek revenge for fun. I sought justice for survival. And the sweetest part was this. I didn't become her. I didn't lie. I didn't smear. I didn't attack. I just kept records. If you're asking what's the sweetest revenge, my answer is staying calm when they want you emotional, collecting proof when they want you confused, and letting their own actions be the evidence, because when someone builds their life on manipulation, the truth is the sharpest thing you can serve. So Aita for letting HR take her down after she stole credit and tried to get me fired? What's the sweetest revenge you've ever tasted? Subscribe for more Reddit-style long stories.